First up, go to my NicoSteves.com website for all things about my book, The Very Fine Light, plus a story about a sunrise service from when I was a boy. Many of you have been asking for the paperback release of my book, The Very Fine Light. It's available on Amazon. Once it's ordered, they'll ship it directly to you. And of course, the audio version is there, as well as on Audible and Apple. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this book, it's a contemporary novel about a village on the verge of bankruptcy and Randy, a free-willing village employee who's always in trouble for speaking his mind. So don't forget to put your name on my mailing list at NicoSteves.com in order to get even more advanced information on The Very Fine Light. Have you ever been to an Easter Sunday sunrise service? I've mostly gone to the midnight services, which are inspiring. But here's a story about a sunrise service from when I was a boy. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my friend's dad took him and me to a sunrise service. I'll never forget that experience. First, I was able to stay overnight at my friend's home as the Easter service would be held in the mountains somewhere in upstate New York, starting a bit before sunrise, and it was about a 1-hour drive from where we lived. So we got up early, and along with us for the ride was the father's best friend. So at 5:30 in the morning, we took off in the dad's new Oldsmobile. I'll never forget sitting in the back seat and hearing these two men talk guy talk. Their conversation wandered from a basketball game the night before to a few jokes they'd tell us boys. Now, my friend's dad smoked cigars, and though they weren't smoking during the morning drive, the smell of cigar smoke hung heavy in the air. I remember feeling like an adult. Here we were, a group of guys heading to the mountains. That part was a bit unusual. My friend's father rarely, if ever, attended Sunday services, and based on the conversation between the two men, neither did his pal. I remember thinking the fact that these two men were making this effort so early in the morning seemed unusual. We'd always go to church with our mothers. Finally, our Oldsmobile turned onto a dirt road leading up the mountain. We parked behind a long line of red taillights outlining the winding uphill corridor. We followed the other intrepid pilgrims up a densely forested slope. I remember the air was very cold. There was a clearing at the top of the rounded apex of the mountain. Perhaps the area was a third the size of a football field. At one end was a stage with about 10 ministers or preachers getting ready. Headlight beams from 2 cars lit up this stage, and a PA system did a sound check that echoed across the vastness beyond our mountaintop. They had timed their event very well. The car headlights shining on the stage were turned off, and suddenly everything was pitch black, and the people stopped talking. A preacher told us all to be silent for a moment. I remembered looking at the stars. They were so bright and stood out in the darkness. As the service continued, a slight hint of illumination could be seen to the east. It grew brighter and brighter as the earth rotated to reveal more and more of the light. I remember as we began to recite the Lord's Prayer, the valleys beyond were getting lit with the sun just beginning to pop above what looked to me like the edge of the earth. I had never witnessed such an awesome sight. As the prayer service was coming to an end, the sun continued to rise above the distant horizon. Up and up, still higher it came, in size and shape, and at the same time getting brighter. The glow now spilled across our mountaintop. I could see all the pilgrims who had come here to witness this Easter service. But my eyes drew me back to where the sun was coming from. We were all watching as the colorful sunbeams emanated from the growing disk spilled, first as a dull orange, but changing as it came totally in view. Suddenly, the big circle of brilliant sunlight came fully into view. A new day had begun. With that, the service ended. I remember my friend's dad and his pal had these small, strange smiles on their faces. These two men looked different somehow, like they were deep in thought. Reflecting back, I believe the experience of this wonderful Easter sunrise service had touched their souls deeply. We got back into the Oldsmobile, and I realized how hungry I was. We stopped at a favorite coffee shop and had eggs and pancakes. I also remember how great they tasted. Before long, the conversation went back to the sports and news stories of the day. Gone were those momentary expressions I had seen on these two men's faces. They now looked more themselves somehow. Eventually, I moved away and never saw my friend or his father again. But I will never forget the men's faces after that Easter sunrise service. Have you ever been to an Easter sunrise service? Let me know in the comments section or at nicosteves@gmail.com. This is Nico Steves. I hope you enjoyed this installment. My book can be found using the title, The Very Fine Light, on Amazon.com. Please feel free to contact me at nicosteves.com. That's Nikos Steves, Steves.com. If you like this episode, and for more, share them with friends. This is Nico Steves. Thank you. See you next time.